Well, it's that time of the week again here at the Nomi Nations with more captivating talks from the 4th Annual Impy Awards. The final touches are being put on Mount Dentkins for this year's award show. While on It's a Vibe, guests have been enjoying creator chats and workout sessions with a certain oversized penguin. Today we're heading back to Freeze Atoll for an insight into game developer life with a group of very talented molecules. Let's head down there now. Please welcome to the stage your host Liam Wiseman for our dynamic developer talk with our talented media molecule devs.
Hi everyone, we're back with more coverage for the 4th Annual Impy Awards. I'm Liam, the online content editor for Media Molecule, and this time we've gathered a group of some of our molecules together to talk about what they do at and how they got into the games industry in the first place. So today I'm joined by level designer Joseph Jewson, artists Sinead Oram and Dan Goddard, and animator Mike Pang. How are you all doing today, folks? Are you all good?
Yeah,
good. Thanks, cheers, Liam.
Yeah, good.
You right?
I'm good too, thanks for asking.
Good.
So you all know why you're here. We want to talk about what you do and your game developer stories. Some people might have seen already that we've put out a few molecule profiles, which are kind of deep dives into some of our colleagues at Media Molecule about their lives, their love of games, how they got into the games industry and what they do. So we thought it would be great to actually have a chance to have that opportunity happen on camera as well. So I was thinking we could start off with a really simple question, if that's okay with you guys, which is basically, who are you? What do you do at Media Molecule? Should we start with Dan?
Yeah, sure. Hello, I'm Dan. I'm a senior artist at Media Molecule.
Awesome. And how about you, Joseph?
Hello. I am Joseph, excuse me. And I am a level designer at Media Molecule. I make levels and design them as well.
No way. That's no one would ever have guessed that.
It doesn't make sense, but someone's got to do it.
Awesome. What about you, Sinead?
Yeah, so I'm an artist at Media Molecule. I do all kinds of arty things. You might know my work from a couple of boot screens, like the holiday boot screen. And I also did the film festival room at last year's Impys, if you remember that one.
Cool. And finally, we've got Dan. No, sorry, Mike. Mike, we've got Mike.
It's all right.
Go again.
You already introduced me, but I'm Mike and I'm an animator at but like all the jobs at you can sort of dabble in everything. So did a bit of character design, art and stuff as well. But yes, mostly predominantly animation.
UI.
Yes.
We're dabbling in a few things actually, and it's not just the animation. Okay. So then, do we want to talk a little bit more about what that actually means on a kind of day-to-day experience? So, what you actually get up to, the kind of things you'll be working on, if there's any kind of highlights of anything that you've worked on that you might want to share with people. So, we can start with Joseph, maybe.
Yeah, I think. To be fair, I think Mike kind of hinted at the fact that, like, I think at Media Molecule everybody's really does quite a range of things. Like I think as a level designer, I do quite a lot of like game design, but also level design. So like, you know, sometimes sort of creating spaces for games to be played in, but also like doing the kind of on paper stuff of like designing features and designing mechanics and that kind of thing. I think the great thing about Dreams is it's really like, for a designer, it's like heaven for prototyping and coming up with ideas and making spaces in there. So there's a lot of that. But I think it changes quite a lot depending on the kind of project, and obviously there's so much going on at MM that it switches quite a bit. But lots of making things work and then running around in them. That's
really cool. It's nice to know there's a bit of a variety for people as well. Okay, so Dan, you want to expand on what you get up to with the artwork?
Oh well, I mean, yeah, just touching on what the others have said. It's just such a varied job. One day you could be doing environments, other days you could be doing characters, concepting new ideas. Just sort of dabbling in lots of different things. Yeah, like day to day is a bit random, I think. But most because Dreams really helps with that, because you can everything's all in one place, so you can just do a little bit of animation on the side, make your artwork come to life. So it's very varied.
Awesome. And then, Mike, you've already kind of alluded to the fact that you do more than just the animation. So why don't you tell us a bit more about the animation that you do, but then also any other bits that you get up to as well?
Well, recently, what's that? Well, we did all the the recent thing was I wouldn't say recent actually, the All Hallows trailers that we did recently with how many years ago was that now? All Hallows trailer. That was really good. It wasn't just animation, but it's also sort of the storytelling side of it all. So we get to do all the camera stuff, all the narrative bits of it as well. So that was so it's not just animating one character, but actually making a short film or a short scene. Because I did do a lot of the cutscenes as well in Artstream as well. So that was so it's not just solely like a traditional games making where you just make warp cycles and jumps, but it's actually making cutscenes, which is really good fun. And part of the side that I really like doing as well, the storytelling side.
That's great. And then Sinead, I mean, obviously, apart from the awesome artwork that you make, what kind of how do you go about doing that? Do you mostly do that in Dreams or elsewhere?
Yeah, most of the times I do like a concept in Dreams and then I'll paint over it and then go back into Dreams and try and get as close to the paint over as I can. It's a really good tool for just being able to like concept something and then be able to run around it really quickly. It's really awesome for just seeing your artwork come to life without having to spend, ever on the pipeline. So it's kind of just this really awesome tool that we get to play with.
Great stuff. So that's a bit about what you actually do, Media Molecule. So maybe we should talk about why you wanted to work in the games industry in the first place. I mean, everyone has their reasons. For most people, I imagine it would be because they actually really like games and they just think that's a cool kind of thing to be working on, an industry to work in. So I'm expecting that, but there might also be some other reasons that people want to work in the games industry. So Sinead, why don't we start with you, actually, for this one?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I sort of fell into the game industry. I originally started in like animation and architectural visualization, and then I found that you didn't really get to like do much creative work. It was very like, here's a concept, just make it. Where games, you really get to like make your own level, get that from the ground up, get to like make a full environment. So I definitely started in games, in mobile games, and I just loved it, and I've never gone away since.
Obviously, with your artwork, did you ever do any artwork for any other like industries, or was it kind of?
Yeah, I actually worked for Blue Zoo, which is the UK's biggest animation studio. I made stuff like Go Jetters and number blocks, really big with the under sevens. Then I also designed swimming pools for very rich people for a couple of years. And what else I also taught 3D art. I've had a very varied career.
Yeah, certainly sounds like it. And then from the other art perspective in the room, Dan, how about you? What made you want to work in the games industry?
Oh, I've always loved playing games, basically, and my route into the games industry was a bit weird. And because I've always played games since I was little, and back I think it was a Commodore 64 I got when I was really young, about nearly over 30 years ago. But and I just really wanted to be part of the industry, and be. It just inspired me. I really wanted to make the things that I enjoyed playing. But I found a job in customer support, and I just muscled my way through, basically to senior artist. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think muscling your way through is always a great way to to get a role like that. So good job with that.
Absolutely.
Mike, what about you from an animation perspective?
Well, it's I sort of, again, I wouldn't say stumble into it, but I suppose I didn't really see games. I didn't see games as an animation career at first. It was kind of because I studied traditional animation, and it was actually EA started this sort of university scheme, and then I thought, oh wow, there's actually a route into animation via games, and then it's actually the collaborative process that I really enjoy. It's actually the sort of team getting together to make something exciting, and it all comes together. That's what I really like about the game side of it. So absolutely, and I like the sort of the concepting phase and the way we get to tinker around with ideas as well, which is really fun part of the process of games making. Unlike film, where here's your schedule, do this, because I did a bit at NPC as well. But but certainly games is where I enjoy it the most.
Awesome. And Joseph, what about you?
I don't really. It's weird. I went to uni to do game design and creative writing, which was like the craziest thing ever. I couldn't believe that was even a course. I loved writing, I loved storytelling, and I didn't have any skills at all. Basically, like I couldn't code, I wasn't an artist. I didn't really. I couldn't really write very well, to be honest, either. But I thought I could at least do that. But I discovered that I could design, which is basically about I think through there it was like kind of discovering that design is all about is a massive part of that. It's like teamwork, and I really enjoy working with the team in the way you do with games. Like such a collaborative, expressive effort. Like I love that, and I think I wanted to be a narrative designer. At the time, and I think like my love of games was kind of around that specifically. I think it's evolved more like as I've kind of my first role was as a level designer on like a match-free game, and then from there like ended up working on Fall Guys for level design on that, which was like that was such a really interesting experience, and that was the first time I'd kind of worked properly in like 3D level design, and I really loved just making something and like seeing people play in a space that you've created. That is just still such a bizarre and exciting feeling, like, and kind of like seeing how they interact with the space that you've created, and the opportunity to even in the most gameplay centric spaces, like tell stories there and create emergent stories and all of that, like that is super exciting to me. So that's kind of, that was like it definitely started in a kind of narrative point, but now I think it's evolved into a more like play and narrative and everything. Like it's just and as I said, like, and I think as everyone's kind of pointed out, like the working with other people is especially when you're surrounded by good people like we are here, like is really the most fulfilling and exciting thing.
Oh, that's great. I'm also really interested to know about not just like why you wanted to work in the games industry, but if there were any games that actually influenced you to think, oh, this could be a really cool career. This could be something I would like to do. Were there any games that you played when you were like growing up, or kind of starting to think about what you wanted to do for work? And did they influence you at all? I mean, anyone can kind of jump in with that.
I'll just quickly carry on because I was on a roll. I mean, I was like obsessed with games, as I think we all were, like up to a point. But the game, weirdly, I don't know why. I remember playing Uncharted 2, and specifically feeling with that game that I wanted to work on making. And I think it was just like how incredible those places were, and how amazing it felt to explore and to like just see what the next thing that you were going to see in this game, like things I'd not encountered in a game before or experienced before at that point. And I think like even though it's like a shooting game, which is like and I mean really fun to play, it's not something I would love to make or work on. It's still just that game for some reason was such an inspiration of like, wow, I want to be involved in making something that can captivate people like this.
Great. Anyone else got a game that inspired them?
So at the time, back when I was a teenager, a lot of games were quite brown and very shooty. And I'd sort of gone, oh, well, I want to do animation, I want to make things, but I don't really think games is a good place for me. And then my partner got me the orange box, which had Portal in it. And it just made me realize that, wow, you can have in-person experiences, that aren't first-person experiences, that aren't like based on shooting people in the head. And it's whimsical and like really funny and really alive. And it just made me think, oh, like actually games can be whatever you want them to be. They can be really punky, they can be really funny, they can be like really colourful. And I think I played Little Big Planet quite soon after that, and that's where it really tripped the switch of, oh, like I could make stuff like that beautiful and that crazy and that cool.
Yeah, that's such a good set of choices. I think a lot of people were very inspired by Portal for sure. It's kind of like the first time you'd seen a puzzle game work like that, and it's like, oh, I can really see how my actions are impacting around me, and that was such a great feeling. But Michael, Dan, do you want to jump in with another one?
I was thinking like way back. I played as a couple of really old games that I used to play to death, which just made me feel really good about games. One was called Ninja Rabbits on the Commodore 64, and I played it to death, and I thought it was mad, basically, and I was really into it. But like, I think one of my favorite games is Rock'n'Roll Racing on Mega Drive, and I absolutely loved it. It just felt so good. I mean, I'm not massively into racing games generally, but that one was just, it had so many aspects, like in the music and the sound and everything, just made me feel really good. And I just love them really old retro-y type games. And Lemmings was the other one, actually. I remember playing Lemmings so much. And I think they had a level editor at some point or something, and I was just really into it, making my own little things like that. That's where I started, basically.
Well, you said that, actually. Yeah, I remember growing up as well on the Commodore 64, Francis and I, there's this game where you could edit the artwork, and so it was like a little shoot 'em up. So you could redesign your spaceship, and you could design the bullets you shoot out, so you could shoot out these massive snowballs, but your collision could be this tiny little triangle, and you sort of literally a pixel that you to sort of fly around. And then that was like sort of first thing of like, oh cool, you can actually make stuff in games. But again, I didn't really put the two together. Like I could do animation and make games. I definitely like sort of grew up with the 2D games, so like Street Fighter comes to mind. It's like just obsessed with that still now, like Championship Edition. But the animation on those are brilliant. And Third Strike, I still think it's probably one of the best sort of 2D beat 'em ups out there.
Such a great selection of games from people. That's really really cool to see. And then I suppose in terms of actually, your route into the games industry, I mean, obviously some of you touched upon it a little bit earlier on, but some of you kind of stumbled into it, some of you kind of went a bit more intentionally. But what was it that what were your routes into the industry? So should start with Sinead for that one.
Yeah, so I think Mike mentioned like a graduate scheme. So my first job designing swimming pools for very rich people was actually through the Go Wales scheme. So like that was a graduate scheme for people in Wales who wanted to get into like, things that they've actually graduated in. So that was like my first foot in the door. And then after that, I sort of went back to school, went and did a master's degree. And then the company Glowmade sort of went, we really like your work, come work in games, come make mobile games with us. And that was like my first kind of taste of the wild creativity that you actually get to indulge in games.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I think one piece of advice I would say to anyone is that I currently mentor with Limit Break. And that has been like amazing to help people get into the industry. So if you've got the opportunity to do a mentorship scheme, Limit Breaks in the UK, it's totally free. And yeah, big up mentorship, because 100% I think that helps a lot of people in.
Yeah, absolutely. It can help you get over the old imposter syndrome, can't it? Which is never fun when you first start working anywhere. But that's really cool that you had that opportunity to come in through a completely different angle and almost kind of got noticed through your work in a very different industry. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, as said, I think I mentioned it before. Yes, because I graduated from Bournemouth Art Institute, which is traditional 2D animation, and I think they had connections with EA where they were doing the graduate scheme, and they were sort of picking out sort of portfolios and things. So what was mad actually back then, my showreel was on the VHS tape as the first interview, where they had the sort of TV, wheel it in, put the cassette. That was bonkers. And then they hired me in as a character concept artist, but then they were willing to teach me Maya, and that's how it really sort of went from there. Really, as sort of you really do learn the most on the job. Really, and that's where it sort of really sort of kicked off from there. So from EA to then in many other sort of other games companies, but then to film, to then back to games.
That's great. And it's cool that I mean, I can't even imagine doing any animation and then putting it on a VHS. Like, that just kind of blows my mind at this point, you know?
Yeah, it still blows my mind. Well, I had a friend of mine actually who had it connected to a PC, so he actually put it on the CD-ROM. Incredible resolution of, don't know what it was. I think it was like 640 by 320 or something, or less than that probably. But yeah.
Brilliant. And then Dan, you obviously already touched on a little bit earlier about your kind of less on traditional route into the industry. Do you want to elaborate a bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to work in the games industry, but I didn't know exactly where I wanted to be in the games industry. So straight out of school, I found a job. It was in the job centre, which was in customer support for a games company, and I spent years doing customer support in the games industry, and I managed to get from customer support into the QA department, and then I learned a lot basically from just working in the games industry and talking to people and networking and all that. And then from there I ended up managing the QA department for the games company that I was working for. And then I did a whole lot of QA. I was in QA for about 7 years or something. But in that time, it was really valuable, getting to know people on the development side of things and learning how games are sort of made and really beefing that knowledge. And it wasn't until I was always interested in art, like on the side, and I'd always be doodling, but not like in a professional way, sort of like just interested in it. And I was always fascinated by it and sort of learning it on the side. And then when I joined Media Molecule, I think 12 years ago today, actually, work anniversary. But yeah, 12 years ago, I ended up joining Media Molecule, and I ended up testing Dreams when we were working on it back in the day, and I was testing all of the sculpture tools and all the art tools and things like that, and it really empowered me. And I remember talking to Francis actually, asking like, how do I do this? Like, I love it, and I'm really into it. I really want to do it as a job. And he pokes me into, we used to have the life drawing sessions and things, and So, and from then I just hit it really hard, and I was learning everything on techniques about oil painting, and I was just really into fine art and traditional mediums, and being able to apply that in Dreams was a game changer, because Dreams have really helped you to do that, and I could really flex for the things I was sort of learning from traditional art in Dreams, and it worked out moving from QA into the art team, and then I've just been working in the art team now for the last 5 years at Media Molecule. But thanks to Dreams, it really inspiring me. But yeah, quite a long answer, but like it was from going from customer support into a senior artist role, basically. It's a long slog, but it's been fun. It's a good industry.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a really impressive transition, to be honest. But you can absolutely see how the stuff you learned in kind of customer service would be really useful when actually, creating games and making stuff, because then you could see directly the kind of things that people get confused by in games, the kind of things they get stuck on, and you'll know how to kind of, or you'll come up with ways to try and get around that when you're actually creating stuff. And Joseph, you actually you went to uni as well, didn't you, for level design, or not? Was it for level design, or what was it for exactly?
It was for art. I mean, I just want to say my story is so much less interesting than that. That was so cool, Dan. I went to study for game design and creative writing. and at the time I wanted to be a writer. I just wanted to be really cool. Like I wanted to drink like red wine and like smoke a cigarette and write, and that's what I wanted to do. But I wasn't actually very good at writing, which I found out at uni. So I was like, okay, I need to do something else. And I basically didn't really do any work for the first 2 years. Like, I was a really bad student. And then I just remember one day, I think somebody came in to give a talk and they were like, yeah, there's not enough like junior design roles in the world for the amount of people in this room right now. And I was just like, well, I either give up right now or like try just really, really hard and like complete turn. I just started like learning Unreal Engine and just trying to learn all the stuff I could, and then spent the whole of my third year making this dissertation game, which was like the story of you play as a duck and you take your little ducklings across the country, and I just got super passionate about that. Like I never cared about anything ever in my life like I cared about making this dissertation. And then like completely burned myself out and make it, but in doing so like got the attention of my like mentors and tutors, and sort of people were like, okay, this is you're actually not stupid, you can actually do something. And then fortunately, then it was really, really lucky. I had like a year of looking for jobs, but like not really applying because I was too afraid to apply, because I thought my portfolio was nowhere near good enough. Like I thought I was working on stuff, but like I was focusing on all the wrong stuff, like trying to build a portfolio, but like working on one tiny project for like a year, and really just not giving myself the opportunity to get a job anywhere. And then I got a message from my uni who was like, there's this opening here and I've recommended a couple names, I've put your name forward if you want to apply. And I was like, well, I'm never going to get it, but I'll apply. And it turned out like they really liked the portfolio I already had, and they like gave me a design test, and like that went well, and then I got a job there. So I guess like the main message is like, the main lesson from mine is like, just apply, because I was never applying to anything, and if you don't apply, you're never going to get anything. So but I got really lucky to get that role, and I still can't really believe that I'm here and doing this. Like, it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I mean it's really interesting to hear your stories, and then how you actually kind of you all worked your way in. I suppose one thing that I was going to follow on with, which you again have sort of touched upon a little bit in what you've said, is, did you find it difficult to get into the games industry? Because obviously the games industry can be competitive depending on the type of role you're looking for. Because I mean, obviously, as Joseph said, like the kind of role, junior designer sort of stuff that he was looking at, there's tons of roles open for that, but not everyone wants to obviously go into that kind of work. So I don't know, maybe start with Mike, how you found that, because obviously you had already like studied traditional animation and worked your way into kind of video game animation. Did you find that a difficult process?
Well, it was interesting actually, because when they did come to the college, we all went for a first interview, and then I didn't the first time applying, actually I didn't actually get through, and it was like this sort of like, oh no, what am I going to do with myself? Because traditional animation, then like computer CG stuff was just all kicking off. Like Framestore was just only hiring CG people. There's no 2D animators out there. And then I just thought, I'll just email back at EA and go, could you just give us some feedback on what I could do to add to it? And then they went, someone's dropped out of this scheme, do you want the role? And that was how I kind of stumbled in, really. So it's almost like it's good just to sort of keep in contact with the people who you apply to and always ask for feedback. But yeah, the feedback worked out well for me. I got a job at the end of it. But yeah, I mean, even then, when you have it, don't be complacent, really. Just sort of really stick at it, because it's so rare to, I know for me at the time, just thinking, being in the industry and doing something that you enjoy, how rare do we have, to have that kind of job where you do something that you love, where it becomes not a job. And so, just to sort of soak in all the experience around you, and just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it is quite a privilege to be able to work in like a creative industry like this that produces so many wonderful and often very weird things. Dan, how about you? Because obviously you as you said, you had quite a long transition, or like, well, you got that customer service role, and then it was a long transition into kind of the art, which you ended up actually loving in the end. So, did you find the process difficult, or was it a situation of not really knowing what you wanted to do until it kind of was shown to you? You know,
that was. I mean, it was difficult from that aspect, and it was quite a long slog. Like, I've been in the games industry for 20 years, and an artist for like 5, I think. So, you know. Going through all that and not really understanding, you know, you love the industry, you want to be part of it, right? So I took that customer support role, but I didn't know exactly, and finding out that that actually artist is where I want to be. Like, it took a while, a long time. So that was the thing that I found the most difficult, I think, is I was sort of arriving at that point. Yeah, it's good to have got there, and I wouldn't have changed it for the world. It was a fun process, but it was quite a long slog to sort of find my way. Basically, was the thing I found the most difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine that is tricky, right? Not knowing, or not even realizing there was something that you really were super into until you kind of got presented with it as an option later on. But I mean, it's brilliant that you obviously were able to make that work.
And I was going to say as well, just to touch on it, when you're in a sort of job, you're not, when you're working in QA, you've got this creative side of yourself, and you want to express yourself and be like that, balancing doing your day job and sort of doing the other thing that you're really passionate about as well. It is the other thing that, time-wise, I ended up hitting, learning and catching up with all this knowledge that I needed to know to be able to do an art role. That was also the thing, the challenge, to balance between your day job and your aspirations.
Yeah, and then for Sinead, I mean, how was that for you? Obviously, because it almost sounded like, in a way, you kind of got headhunted really by some of the artwork that you had put out there, and then people saw it and were like, "Oh, this is really cool. We want you to."
Yeah, no, that was it. It was sort of like when I graduated, I was working in a bingo hall for a year, and then I finally got the job making swimming pools. So it was like a really long process. But like Dan said, I just kept making stuff in my spare time, making stuff that I really loved making. So when I did my master's degree and I made my final film, it was like something just that I really liked and really felt passionate about, and I was proud of my creation. And then that was when I finally got the call back from people. So yeah, it was sort of like a long journey to be good enough to sort of get in. But I think making stuff in my spare time that I was really passionate about was the key for me.
Yeah, but that's so awesome. And so you just kept working at it, kept kind of building up that portfolio, and tweaking your work, and then people took notice in the end. So
kept on trucking.
Exactly. Joseph, you mentioned that you obviously had a kind of like a year's gap essentially between when you were graduating and then when you actually started getting offers. So in that time, and you mentioned as well that you were kind of like nervous about the kind of things you're applying for because you weren't sure if you had, enough experience or what they were looking for. How did you eventually kind of overcome that barrier and start really pushing and applying for things?
I honestly didn't really. I think I like, as I said, I got lucky in that somebody reached out to me and was like, oh, this is, and that that was based on because I'd worked really hard on this thing, and also I did work on so there's this thing called Transfuser, which is like something for students coming out of uni who are just graduating, and it's basically a scheme where you can like apply to get a grant to make a game in a small team, and so we basically got like a little grant to work for 10 weeks on this project and then take it to EGX. And even though it didn't go anywhere, like that was the most valuable experience of my life up to that point, because it was like, I think even just doing it shows to people that you have to balance design and production and working with a team and all these elements that are really, really important. So I kind of came out of that with like, okay, I've got my dissertation stuff, I've got stuff that I'm working on my own time, I've got this game that we've worked on, but also honestly the experience of that was more important than the actual piece to show. Like talking about the experience of that with interviewers and with people was more valuable than like, look at this little game we made, because I think as a designer especially, like the way you can communicate with people, the way you can work in a team, and the fact that people even want to work with you because you know you can like, I don't know, like you aren't difficult to work with. Like I think that's the thing I was told the most trying to get into games is like, don't be an arsehole. I don't know if I can say that, but like that was like the biggest thing is like people will know and remember people they don't want to work with, and like sometimes it is genuine, can be work to be like, I need to, no matter how I'm feeling, I need to be somebody here. I need to like be somebody who people want to work with, because that is probably the most important thing. You can be like an amazing technician or artist or designer, but if you treat people badly and they don't want to work with you, then you're not going to get a role. So I think like I would probably think I might have been under sort of equipped skill wise to start in the industry, but like I worked really hard at trying at the communication skills and all these things of like trying to be somebody who was listening and who wanted to learn from people around them, and all of this stuff. Like that was what I think got me a job more than like the things that I could show that I'd done. But I think that was a really lucky position as well, and I think like ideally you kind of have both. But yeah, yeah.
That's great. I mean, that is like a perfect segue into actually my next question, which is kind of about, you know, the collaborative process of making games, because obviously, if you're working in a game studio, you're not going to be the only person making these games. You do not have like full creative control over how you do things and when you do things, you know. So was that a challenge to get used to at the start? Like how do you all feel about the kind of collaborative process of making games? Because obviously it can be challenging at times when you have large teams, or when you have a lot of people with a lot of different ideas and inputs, and then you know you can end up with like things like feature creep, where there's too many things going on in the game and it's just a bit messy. Like how do you deal with the kind of collaborative aspect of making games? Start with Mike this time.
Yeah, you have to understand that it's a collaborative process. I mean, there's many sort of inputs that you could put into the game, whether it's your own style or your sort of flavor of something. So it's never that sort of black and white of like, this is someone's vision and this is it. It's not like sort of a director's role where I want it like this and I want it from here to here. It's like a sort of a storytelling thing of like, okay, I just want this to happen, and then you can sort of fill in the gaps in between of how you expect that to happen. I think that's what's been quite good at is that they're quite open to other people's design choices, and everyone has a voice as well. So it's not very strict on I want it exactly like this. But yeah, even like other companies, they've always been. Maybe I've been lucky that I've actually never had to do mocap. It's always been keyframe animation, so maybe that in itself allows me to have a lot more sort of creative input in that sense. So I could sort of, I'm not relying on someone's performance.
Makes a lot of sense. Do you think that it would be different if you were having to do mocap and kind of like, you know, relying on like an actor's performance as well as your own animations?
Well, I think, I suppose that's the thing that isn't very creative in that sense. It's sort of, you're just sort of tidying up someone's performance, and I think I prefer it where I have a bit more creative freedom about deciding like an attitude of someone walking, running, or deciding about how they stand. There's a lot of personality within how someone holds themselves, and if say that direction was given poorly and then I was having to live with this sort of mocap, then that would be quite disappointing from a creative side. But obviously I'm a professional and I'd stick with it and then just do it. But yeah.
And then Joseph, how does that work from a kind of from a level design perspective? I mean, because obviously you have multiple level designers. So they could all come up with completely different styles of levels, but ultimately whatever game you're making has to feel kind of consistent as well, right? So is that a challenge that you've dealt with before?
Yeah, I think like one of the most important things for any design is like having on any game, like having design pillars that you are sticking to. So, and I think to be honest, there's something cool about having different styles of levels, right? As long as they are all kind of like serving the design, the core design of the game, and like bringing that out. Like I think like in my experience, there's been times where it's actually quite interesting to have different styles from different people of levels, and kind of like, you know, because you want to have a varied experience in most games, right? Like you want to kind of like bring different sort of experiences to it, but you don't want them to feel like they're from different games or they're serving different things. So I think like having a really good understanding of like these core game pillars, and you know, making sure that whenever you're discussing feedback with people, you are like aligning with those and looking back to those and being like, if we're going to make a decision, or if there's some kind of like struggle point between two designers, like, okay, well, what serves these core pillars the most? But like, yeah, I think in general, like even just outside of design, like I think the biggest role of a designer is communication and working in a team, like and coordinating with everybody. Like I think it's really about like ensuring everybody is getting to be creative and everybody has freedom and everybody has like, as you know, and that's the balance is like, again, aligning with those pillars everywhere in the team, but like making sure that everybody is doing that like in a way where you're not like kind of dictating things through the design and being like, oh well, no, this needs to be like this because of this certain thing. Like a lot of the time it doesn't. Like you can allow the sort of freedom there, and I think that's the most exciting thing of the job really, is like seeing something, especially with art, like seeing art on a level you've created where you're just like, these are the few things that need to be this way for design points, but other than that, you know, go crazy, and then getting that back, and it's like, it's amazing. It's such a inspiring thing.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense, and I think it's great, you know, when you're doing level design as well, to get that feedback. People actually playing the game as well, playing the level and stuff, right? So you know whether it feels nice to play.
That can be really. That's like probably the hardest thing I think for me, is like trying to not take things personally, like trying to, you know, like finding that balance. I'm sure that goes for like everybody here in a way. Is like finding the balance between caring about the thing that you're working on, but being able to sort of detach a little bit when it comes to feedback. And I think especially for level design, and you know, you've worked on something and then you see people playing it and you're like, no, this isn't working in the way, or they're getting frustrated, they're not enjoying the experience that you've made, and being able to be like, okay, that's not a slight on me. You know, like this is the job is to take that and to then work on it and to see player feedback, rather than like being, you know, taking it personally, which I find really hard, because I don't know, maybe I'm just sensitive, but I'm really like they hate me, whatever. Like it can be difficult, but yeah, it's a big part of, I think, game development in general.
And then for Sinead and Dan, our artists, you know, how do you come up with, again, consistent artwork that feels like it all kind of belongs in one universe or one game style? That must be quite a challenge, especially in something like, you know, when you're working on something like Dreams, which has, you know, so much potential, so many different ways of creating different types of art. How do you make sure you work together with each other?
I think embracing that is awesome. Like, we're all very creative people, right? Creative people want to break the rules, push the boundaries, which is, there's merit in that, definitely. But obviously when you're working on a project, you've got a brief, you know, you've got to rein it in a little bit and align, as long as you're sort of like aligned with these with everyone's influences and adding it to the pot and everything.
Yeah, having like a really strong vision to start off with, I think helps, and then just the magic happens in the collaboration between two artists with totally different styles, totally different ideas about what things should look like, and then you sort of mix them together, and then you get really excited by what they've made, and then they use bits that you've made, because Dreams is like so easy to collaborate on that kind of thing. Like Dan will take bits of my work and I'll take bits of Dan's work, and then we'll just all draw and doodle all over it. and then you end up with like really cool art. Like I feel like me and Dan have worked together quite a few times, and it always feels like we're a little art tag team. Like we're just really enjoying the collaboration.
What's your favorite thing about working at Media Molecule specifically? So I know some of you obviously worked in other places, some of you have mainly just worked at Media Molecule, but is there anything that you really love or value about working in the place you do? Anyone can.
I can jump in.
I mean,
Oh, go on, Mike.
go ahead. I love the creative freedom that you have, that you're not pigeonholed into, I'm an animator, therefore you only do animation things. I love the collaboration process, so working with coders who help realize your vision or ideas, especially when sort of coming up with the animation tool in Dreams. So then making the cutscenes in Dreams, I'm working with designers and closely about what so and so happened this. So like during playthroughs, everyone has a voice. I think that's what's brilliant about MM and the people and Kath and Owen, because they make awesome food. Though I am working from home now, so I miss them very much.
Yeah, you took I think most of my reasons as well, but like, yeah, I think we've all worked in places where you get given a thing that you need to make and you have to stick very, very closely to the letter, and they basically want you to color in the numbers, but you get to choose the colors maybe, but like you don't get the freedom you get here. Like I think there's just a real like respect for everybody from all sort of layers through the studio. Of like we all understand that people, everybody has specific talents. Everybody has like more than one thing that they're good at. Everybody kind of like can input on so many different things, and everyone like wants to hear other people's like inputs, and there's just a lot of room to get involved creatively. So yeah, and the people, obviously, gotta say that or people get mad at you. Jokes.
I was just going to say that like Media Molecule, there isn't a single person that I don't want to learn from. It's just a very inspiring place to work. But everyone's got their. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like everyone's really creative, really passionate. Everyone's a bit of an artist and a bit of a rebel at Media Molecule, and it comes together really well. Like, every time I join a team, I'm like, whoa, this team is awesome. And then I join the next team, and I'm like, whoa, this team is awesome. It's like constantly being inspired by each other.
Oh, that's great. That's such good answers, and it's so nice to kind of hear that about the team, because the team at Media Molecule is absolutely incredible, just awesome people. So I wanted to ask each of you an individual question, and then I've got like one final question at the end to kind of wrap it up. So Joseph, you're a level designer. How important is good level design to video games?
Not very important. Doesn't really matter. You can just throw some. No, it's obviously. I think it's for me. It's like it kind of goes twofold. Like obviously, as I mentioned earlier, like the part I was super interested in when getting into the industry was narrative, and I think level design is narrative. Everything you do, even in games which don't have much focus on narrative, like every level you make is telling a story in some way, and I think like understanding that and trying to bring that in and is really, that can elevate a game in a way which I think can sometimes be unconscious, and I think the other hugely important part that I'm discovered more and more as I've been in the industry is like how important level design is for showcasing and supporting basically your mechanics. You can have the most fun mechanics in the world, you can have like the most fun traversal and combat, and none of it will matter if your level design doesn't support and make those things shine. And I think like that is so I think as a level designer you're also you need to be heavily involved with like the mechanics and the features and all of this stuff, and understanding how it all works and being a part of that design, because if you are like the levels you design can really like show, can just make the game. Like I think without it, you have a pretty world and you have like things that feel tight but no way to use them and no space to use them in where you're going to like actually experience things or actually like it's so much of like building spaces to really just like showcase and highlight and elevate mechanics and use them in interesting ways and get creative with how players and then play with people's expectations and all of this stuff. Like I think it all happens in level design, and I just love that it's the real ground floor of it. You know, it feels so tactile being in there and making these spaces. And I think if you enjoy making a space and hanging out in the space that you've made, then people are going to enjoy playing in it.
Awesome.
I think that answers it.
That was a great answer. I mean, spoilers. Obviously, I knew level design's important, but you know, it's always good. It's always good to hear why again and just be reminded of that. And with Sinead and Dan, I was interested in again you touched upon this a little bit earlier when talking about the collaboration aspects of creating artwork in games. But when it comes to a game, how do you, or like a piece of work that you're working on, how do you come up with an art style that you want to go with and an art style that feels consistent and interesting in that world? And does that ever change over time whilst you're making a game?
I mean, it's quite difficult to get the ball rolling, I find. But like when we've got good narratives, good game designs, you've got team influence like that. And the thing starts manifesting. Ideas start popping into your head. So then you sort of take it on a journey, and then eventually that sort of evolves into a thing that you're really passionate about. And then you put all these, like I was working with Sinead, we were bouncing ideas off each other like all the time, and then it basically just creates this sort of, I want to say abomination, but it's the nicer word for that, I'm sure. But it's just, like a thing that you want to work with and you're really passionate about.
Yeah, it's like it starts taking a life of its own, really. Like you start with all your influences and all the things that you think look cool. But yeah, it's like you start with a seed of an idea, like what's the narrative or what are you trying to get the player to feel? And then you sort of just go on a deep dive about what you can create to make them feel that or feel that connection or enjoy that mechanic. And then it just sort of comes together like a magic kind of spell, like an abomination, like you said. It grows legs and starts becoming its own creature, and then you're like, yeah, I'm on board with it, let's just roll with it.
Just imagine this abomination of all these art ideas just walking and we're just sitting on their shoulders sort of like guiding it around.
It's like a Pinterest board going to life.
It's a seed for an idea for a concept or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that sounds absolutely horrifying, but I'm sure I would love to play a game with that in. So yeah, keep that in mind. And finally for Mike, it's a similar question, I guess, but I wanted to ask, given that animation is such a massive medium, there's so many different styles of animation and ways you can do it. How do you figure out what you want your animation to like in the game, and how do you, keep it looking like, stylistically accurate in that way?
Yeah, I suppose it all sort of stems down from narrative, I think, and also working closely with design. So what are the stylistic choices? What's the story or what's the setting, and what is the art as well? Because you think like places like Tearaway, it's all paper, so it was we had the idea of like stop motion, so everything was sort of animated on twos, but then the main character couldn't be on twos because you had to have precision jumping, so iota, and that's why I was all animated and running at game time of 30 frames or 60 frames a second, but all the NPCs could be stuck in twos. So those are sort of, so you get, so you just have to it has to support the vision as well. It can't just live on it. So everything has to sort of, support design, art, everything. And it's also the same with art stream, the way the art stream segments were puppeteering, because we sort of purposely sort of made these quite chiseled looking puppets, and then you had the Francis and Foxy, so they could be a bit more playful, so we could do a bit more sort of frame swapping with like sort of squash and stretching. And then for what's it? LED and what's it? Debug. That's the one. Yeah, they could just sort of be. It's more sort of precision platformer, so things sort of have to be a bit more snappier and accurate. So so it always just kind of supporting the design and the art, really.
Brilliant. And so I have one last question for each of you, because obviously you all come from different kind of disciplines within Media Molecule and the games industry in general. But if you were to give up-and-coming games developers and people that are interested in working in the games industry one bit of advice, what would that bit of advice be?
I'm happy to go with this one.
Yeah, jump in.
So for me, what worked out was making things in a style I loved, making stuff I really loved. So often what I tell people I'm mentoring is, imagine what's your dream studio to work for, and then go away and make some portfolio pieces in that style. Because you might not walk into that studio on day one, but your portfolio will be full of stuff that you love, and then you'll get to work on maybe another studio with a similar style with people who all love that vision as well. So that's always something I like to tell students is find that vision, make the thing in your style that you actually love making.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that and say I think my mistake was being very precious about things, and obviously I got into the industry in spite of the way I was trying to build a portfolio and all this stuff. So I would say, like, as a designer especially, don't be precious about things, just make things, and the act of making things is more important than the thing you actually make. Like, especially as a designer, like, it's more about the learnings that you take away from it than it is about being able to be like, look at this thing I made. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have this stuff and be like, oh, look how amazing I am. And in reality, I couldn't do it. I wasn't amazing. I'm not that I am now, but well, but basically, just don't be precious. Like, make a bunch of stuff. Do jams with people if you kind of like have the time, and you can actually do that without like burning out. But just don't be precious.
I think that's a very good point, isn't it? It's just not being too precious about the work, sort of embrace and just sort of be humble as well. To be a sponge in everywhere you work in as well, to sort of take in advice as and where you can, and be excellent to each other.
I think that is a good point. And always learning is the thing that I've sort of taken away from that journey, because it's creative people. It's always going to be up and down. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster. But even in the downs, you carry on learning, and you just don't be discouraged, and just don't stop. If you're passionate about these things, and you keep going, and it'll fall into place slowly.
That was great. That's
That cat come.
Is that Dan's orange cat?
It's because Dan was in like this beautiful flow of this point, and the cat was like, yeah.
It was like, yeah. So yeah, guy.
Right on.
Well, that was brilliant. Thank you so much for your time. I'd like to give a big thank you to Sinead, Mike, Dan, and Joseph for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to all of you again. That was our dynamic developer interview as part of the 4th Annual Impy stream. And to close it out, I just want to say, like Mike said, be excellent to each other.
Thanks for joining us here at the Alka Cave for that look behind the curtain here at Media Molecule. We're almost there now for the 4th Annual Impy Awards, coming to you live from Mount Denkins on the 26th of March. Brought to you by Nomcom, proud sponsors of this year's Annual Impy Awards.